Alright, what's up guys, and welcome back to the Cyclonic Thrift channel. We've got an exciting deck for you guys today. As most of you know, the Ravnica Remastered set has been released recently, and I wanted to take the opportunity, even though there aren't many new cards from this set, right, we're hearing a lot of reprints from old Ravnica sets. I wanted to take a look at some of those reprints, some cards that maybe we haven't seen decks for a while, but wanted to bring them back, refresh a little bit, and see if we can add some new cards into it to add a little bit new spice. So the first commander we'll be looking at today from that set is a mouthful to say. It's Borborygmos Enraged. And not only does he have a long name, he has a massive mana cost. So he's 4, 2 red, and 2 green for a 7/6 legendary creature Cyclops. He's got Trample, and whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you reveal the top 3 cards of your library, and you put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. And then you can discard a land card, and he deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So, right off the bat, we're looking at land synergy. Not so much landfall, which is interesting. It's a departure from really what I enjoy doing with lands is the landfall effect game. But this is about getting lands into our hand, right? We want to be able to have access to as much damage as possible to be able to take out creature threats, to pressure people's life totals. We're looking to really put the hurt on these people, on our opponents, by discarding these land cards. And so in this deck, I want to look through several ways to just fill our hands with lands. We want to get lands to our hand from the battlefield, we want to get lands to our hand from our library, and we want to get lands to our hand from our graveyard, because we'll be dumping a lot of cards into our graveyard as well. So to start off, we've got Mina and Den Wildborn, 2 red and a green for a 4/4 legendary creature elf ally. We can play an additional land on each of our turns. Great. Ramp, we have a lot of lands in this deck anyway, so being able to get them out ahead of schedule is going to be really helpful. But the real benefit here is the ability where you can pay a red and a green. But the real benefit here is the ability where you can play red and a green to return a land you control to its owner hand, and target creature gains trample until end of turn. So it's really all about returning those lands. The trampling creature, we have a few creatures that, get him in for extra damage, great. You could also play this on other people's creatures, right? If somebody's attacking into your opponent, you can give him trample, right? As well as benefiting yourself by returning those lands to your hand. It's honestly a decent politics piece, a way to persuade people to attack your opponents. You're like, I can give him trample, get him in for extra damage, see what happens. Next card here is Firewild Border Post. It's 1, a red and a green for an artifact. You can pay 1 and return a basic land you control to its owner's hand rather than pay its mana cost. It comes in tapped, and you can add red or green. So by using that ability, right, the downside of losing access to a land on the battlefield, that's okay. We're returning it to our hand, we want it in our hand, and we're basically just replacing it with a tapped artifact that can tap for any color that we really need for this deck, right? So in essence, you've got a forest, right? You tap the forest to pay for the 1, you return it to your hand, you play this for free. It's a good trade-off. It's a way to buy into our strategy, but also make sure we're not losing too much mana as we're moving forward. The next is a little similar. It's Colony Gem. It's 4 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you return 2 lands you control to our hand. And then we can tap to add 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool. So it's ramp, but it also gets lands back into our hand. In a normal deck, I don't really like playing this, to be honest. It's a pretty high cost for just a 2 mana artifact, but for this deck, it's perfect. But now we want to be able to have access to the land cards in our graveyard. And to do that, we've got cards like Groundskeeper. It's a green 1/1 creature human druid, and it has the ability 1 and a green, you return target basic land card from your graveyard to your hand. So, through the course of the game, land cards will be going into your graveyard. We'll be milling a little bit. we've got a little bit of synergy there, and so we'll have access to as many basic land cards in our graveyard as we want. And so this is gonna just be a super incidental pay 2 mana at the end of our turn or whatever. We've got 2 mana open, and just get an extra card in our hand would be super helpful. This next card is kind of fun. It's Paradise Lost, 3 and 2 green. For an instant, you roll 2 6-sided dice, and you return any number of cards with total mana value X or less from your graveyard to your hand, where X is the total of those results, and you exile this card. So, in any situation, right, 2 6-sided die, you end up averaging 6 mana. It's going to be super helpful, right? You get a nice creature back, you get an artifact back, mana rock, all that good stuff. But for our purposes, when we're trying to return lands to our hand, lands have a mana cost of 0. So no matter what results you roll with these dice, you'll be able to return all the lands from your graveyard to your hand. And depending on where you are in the game, this could literally win you the game. Right? You bring back 10 lands to your hand, discard them all with Borborygmos, deal 30 damage across a few targets. That's going to kill people. So this is an excellent card for this deck, and as I said, it will win you games. And the second is actually super similar. It's Creeping Renaissance. It's 3 and 2 green for a sorcery. You choose a permanent type, return all cards of the chosen type from your graveyard to your hand. We're going to be choosing lands. It'll do basically the same thing. And then finally, we want to get lands into our hand from our library. So cards like Dryad Greenseeker. It's 1 and a green for a 1/3 creature Dryad. You tap it to look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you reveal it and put it into your hand. Easy peasy. If it's not a land card, right, you just leave it there. But it's basically like scrying with a little less control. So it's still giving you access to information that you wouldn't have otherwise. The next is Yavimaya Elder. It's 1 and 2 green for a 2/1 creature human druid. When he dies, we can search our library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into our hand, and then we can pay 2 to sacrifice him and draw a card. So the way that this ends up math-wise is with this guy out, we pay 2 mana, sacrifice him to draw a card, and to get 2 land cards into our hand. With Borborygmos is 6 damage. So we're paying 2 mana to draw a card and deal 6 damage to something. Excellent rate. We absolutely love it. And the last here is Nylea's Intervention. It's X and 2 green for a sorcery, and we choose 1 of each. 1 is we can deal damage to creatures with flying, but the one that we'll be doing most often is searching our library for up to X land cards, revealing them, putting them into our hand, and then shuffling our library. So yeah, with this card, depending on where you are in the game, you get to search for as many land cards as you want from your library, put them into your hand, and then we'll go from there in terms of how much damage that we need in that particular moment. But this is also a card that if we're in the game late enough, you have enough access to enough mana, you can win the game with this card just by dealing damage to people. And then that brings us to the veggie portion of this deck. As with every budget deck, every deck list, every deck tech, every deck build that we go over, you have to eat your veggies if you're on a budget. If you don't do the things that you need to smooth out how your deck performs, to increase the consistency of your play, you're not going to be able to compete with these higher level, higher budget, higher power decks at your table. And for me, I divide those veggies up into 3 categories: mana ramp, card draw, and removal. And we have to make sure that we include enough cards from each of those categories in our decks. That's a big part of my deck building process, and a reason why I have an entire section here to talk about it. So for the first category, we've got 3 of basically the same card: Elvish Mystic, Fyndhorn Elves, and Llanowar Elves. They are all 1 green, 1/1 elf creatures that tap to add a green. Right, so super easy, super simple. I mean, this deck has green in it, so we've got all the ramp spells, all the things like that. But these creatures are super nice to get down early. They're repeatable value throughout the game, and they can also serve as important blockers at critical moments. In terms of card draw, we're looking at ways to kind of sift through the top of our deck and again get land cards into our hand, because In most games, right, when you're drawing cards, you're looking to not draw land cards. That's kind of what you want to avoid. For us, that's what we want, right? We want land cards in our hand because that's, one, going to give us enough mana eventually to cast Borborygmos, and two, we're going to be able to take advantage of his ability by having lands in our hand. So the first is Adventurous Impulse. It's 1 green for a sorcery. We look at the top 3 cards of our library. We can reveal a creature or land card from among them, put them into our hand, put the rest at the bottom. In a very similar vein, you have Winding Way. It's 1 and a green for a sorcery. You choose creature or land, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You put all cards of the chosen type revealed into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. So 2 ways we could go about this, right? If we have plenty of lands, we can choose creatures. If we need lands, we can choose lands. We very easily could hit 2 or 3 in these top 4. And then the rest go in the graveyard, which, as we've said before, we have some synergy with. We'll be able to have access to those cards still. So it's not as much of a downside as I think the card is intending it to be. And then the last here is Snake Umbra. It's 2 and a green for an enchantment aura. We enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has, whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, we may draw a card. And then it also has Totem Armor. So if it would be destroyed, instead we remove all the damage from it and destroy the aura instead. So this is just a super nice card in any instance, but for a commander that deals damage as an ability, this is going to be really nice, right? Because we put this on Borborygmos, give it some protection, and then we start discarding lands, right? We deal 3 damage, it deals damage, so we draw a card. Let's say that card's a land. We discard that land, deal 3 damage, draw a card. Maybe it's another land. And we can, essentially, if the top of our deck is lucky enough, we can just chain reaction this thing into drawing a ton of cards, dealing a ton of damage, potentially winning the game. And then in terms of removal, Borborygmos is great in that he has removal already on him, right, for creatures and players. And then for the rest of it, we'll have plenty of options, right? So Nature's Claim is a green, you destroy target artifact or enchantment, and then its controller gains 4 life. Hull Breach is a red and a green for a sorcery. You choose 1. You can destroy an artifact, or destroy an enchantment, or destroy an artifact and an enchantment. So 2 mana to destroy 2 things is beautiful. And then Decimate is 2 red and a green for a sorcery. We destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land. So it's a 4 for 1, basically. The rate here is insane. We get to also just happen to destroy a land, whatever land is giving the table the most problems at the time. I'm not so worried about that one, but to get the artifact, creature, and enchantment at the same time, that's something that we are going to be super interested in doing. And that brings us to the Thrift pick of today. For those of you who have not watched the channel before, the Thrift pick is the card that I don't necessarily think is the best, right? It's not the best card in the deck, but it is the card that I'm most excited to play. It's the card that when I see it in my opening hand, I'm excited for what the game's going to bring, what the effect is going to be. I think it fits really well synergistically. I'm just excited to see it out. And the card for this deck is Living Twister. It's 2 red and a green for a 2/5 creature elemental. You pay 1 and a red to discard a land card. Living Twister deals 2 damage to any target. So it's basically the Diet Borborygmos effect. It's going to be helpful because we're going to be doing this anyway. But if Borborygmos gets removed, then we still have access to some similar effect on this creature. But we can also pay a green and return a tapped land you control to its owner's hand, right? And for us, that's going to be really nice because we're going to have access to a lot of green mana and a lot of tapped lands. So if we have Borborygmos out, we need a bunch of lands in our hand to finish the game off. This is something that we will be able to get 5, 6, 7 lands back from the battlefield into our hand. You don't really want to go all out for this unless you know you can win, because at that point you're going to be kind of screwed mana-wise. But this is an effect that, again, will win you games depending on how many lands you've got out there. And that brings us to the end of this deck tech. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, we're looking at a couple commanders from the Ravnica Remastered set, some reprints that maybe haven't been in the public eye for a while. Just wanted to get some new cards in there. As always, if you think of cards that I should have included, cards that I might have missed in my research, please comment them down below. I love hearing from you guys and learning some new things myself. Yeah, other than that, please subscribe. Feel free to share this video with some friends. We're looking to get 100 subscribers by the end of the year. I think it's a very doable goal, and can be easily attained with your guys' help. With that, take care and stay thrifty.